The Ducati Desmo450 has finally landed and the spicy Italians have officially arrived in our sport. But will they be able to bring their road racing success to the dirt? And just how good will the Desmo450 be? We'll be finding out the answers to those questions in this video. But first, let's work out why and how Ducati have decided to swap this for this. Like I said, we will be riding the new Desmo450 in this video, so we'll be jetting off to Italy very soon to do that, and we will be amongst the first in the world to try out the new machine. But before that, seeing as Ducati are a new brand in our sport, I wanted to get to know them a little bit better, so we're going to rewind time a little bit to find out the history of Ducati, and we've come to Silverstone for the MotoGP of Great Britain to do that. The glitz and glamour of modern day MotoGP is a far cry from the humble origins of Ducati, who were founded in 1926 near Bologna in northern Italy to produce radio components, not motorcycles. That came later. By 1935, the company was successful enough to open up a new factory in the Panigale section of the city, and they managed to continue production throughout World War II until 1944, when that factory was destroyed by the US in Operation Pancake. It wasn't until the 1950s when Ducati decided to delve into motorcycle production. They originally collaborated with another firm out of Turin to produce small capacity motorized bicycles. This ultimately led Ducati to produce their own machines, and that's where our story really begins. Production soon expanded and the engine sizes kept getting bigger. And by 1953, Ducati split into two. One side was the electronics company and one side was the motorcycle company. Ducati earned worldwide renown in the 1960s with the release of the Mach 1, which was the fastest 250cc machine of its day and a natural-born racer. In 1985, Ducati was bought by another Italian motorcycle firm, and it's a name that might be familiar to you guys in the dirt bike world. It was Cagiva. And then 10 years later, in the mid-90s, Ducati was bought out again by the Texas Pacific Group. Fast forward to 2012, and VW expressed their interest to purchase the prestigious Italian brand. But in all reality, purchasing an exotic motorcycle brand like Ducati wouldn't really make that much difference to the bottom line of the huge German conglomerate that already had 10 different brands under their automobile umbrella. But the man in charge of VW, Mr. Ferdinand Pike, was a motorcycle enthusiast, and he was keen to have Ducati as a prize on his mantelpiece. So in 2012, Lamborghini, which is owned by VW, bought 100% of the Ducati shares for $909 million. Today, it's fair to say that Ducati are known for their large capacity, high performance machines, and they're known by some as the Ferrari of motorcycles. But it's also safe to say that they are famous for their racing antics. So we're here in the MotoGP paddock today, and you can see the Ducati setup behind me. But Ducati were actually missing from this paddock for 30 years. They only rejoined it back in 2003 when there was a big rule change that gave priority to the 990cc four-stroke machines. It was 4 years after they rejoined the championship that they won their first gold, and that was Casey Stoner winning Ducati's first MotoGP World Championship in 2007. They'd have to wait another 15 years though before their second World Championship, and that was won by the man on the other side of that poster, Pecco Bagnaia. Ducati have been pretty dominant in the modern era of MotoGP, winning the Constructors' World Championship for the last 4 years. But it wasn't here where the Italians really became a racing icon. That happened in the 90s during their era of World Superbike domination. The World Superbike Championship started in 1988 and Ducati were there from the start. And thanks to racers like Fogarty, Poland, Tosland, Bautista, Bayliss, Corsa and a few more, they have become the most successful and most winning brand in World Superbike history. And I guess they're going to try and take that pedigree into the motocross Grand Prix. Many moons ago, Ducati did dive into the motocross world with the 1975 125 Regolarita. I think that's how you say it. But that attempt wasn't very successful, so it's taken 50 years for the Bolognese to jump back into the dirt. And with the likes of Tony Cairoli on board, let's hope that this attempt soars a little higher. So I think it's about time that we find out how the Desmo450 stacks up. I've sent our own fiery little Italian over to Faenza to check it out, so let's hand it over to Sean in Italy.
Check out, this is my ride. Look at that bad boy. We get one each, look at that.
So here I am today in Italy at the Monte Carlo motocross circuit in Faenza. Today I've been riding this little beauty, the Ducati Desmo450. A brand new machine, so what have Ducati done differently here? Well, the headlines are the Desmodromic timing system. I'll go into that in a bit more detail in a second. There's also the Ducati traction control, which they say is the first real traction control system for motocross, capable of precisely defining the actual rear wheel slippage. And there's also an innovative aluminium perimeter frame that Sean will touch on more later in the video. But Desmo, what does that mean? So Desmo stands for Desmodromic, and that essentially means two cams. The Desmo system is a valve control system made famous by Ducati. They've been using it on their road bikes for donkey's years now. Most engines use a camshaft to open and close the valves, with springs pushing them back closed once the camshaft moves away. And that system works fine, but it's not quite perfect, especially at high engine speeds, where the valve springs may not close the valves quickly enough. Whereas the Desmo system with one cam to open the valve and one cam to close the valve is much more precise. And this results in better performance at higher speeds and helps keep the engine more stable and efficient. With more precise valve control, the engine can breathe better and produce more power. And these Ducati engines can rev higher and perform better at higher speeds due to this unique Desmo system. So in summary, the Desmo system is a way of controlling the engine's valves using two cams. And it's one of the reasons Ducati motorcycles are known for their high performance engines. But as you can imagine, it's a little bit more complex to manufacture and maintain, and a little bit more costly as well. But Ducati obviously have weighed up the pros and the cons, and they decided that this is the best way to go for their 450 motocross machine. And some of the other key facts and figures for the Ducati Desmo: in terms of power, we're looking at 63.5 horsepower. We've got Showa suspension up the front and at the back. We've got Galfa discs and Brembo 2-piston floating calipers. In terms of weight, we're looking at 231 pounds wet with no fuel. And the bike's got quite a smart brain in there. We've got the Ducati traction control that Sean will talk more about. There's a power launch, 2 riding modes, a quick shifter up. There's engine brake control as well, and what they call Ducati fall detection. Now I'll hand you back to Sean, who's just finished his first session on the Desmo450.
So we've just done the first session out on the new Ducati 450 Desmo. Very, very fast, very torquey. Yeah, a little bit too much power for me, if I'm honest. And we haven't messed about with any of the map settings or anything like that. That's with everything switched off, just in map 1. So we're now going to have a play about with different map settings, reduce the engine braking. Yeah, put some traction on it, get a bit of traction control. And then go from there really. And the grips are very, very small. I know you lot are going to say, well, you're only a small guy, but I have actually got quite big hands, like a size 11 glove, and I find the grips are like small. But apart from that, everything else is good. The bike is unreal. That's how I'm going to explain it. This bike was in development for 3 years and now it's been brought to market. Riding the bike, you would have thought that there was 10 years of development in this, but being Ducati, they're very, very good at what they do in the MotoGP and road bike market. They understand how the chassis, engine and all the rest of it works. I'll start with the chassis. You can see it's an all new aluminium frame chassis with only 11 components, and when I mean 11 components, you know, it consists of like, all this is die cast from there to there, welded here, welded there, and then obviously the brace is where the shock goes and everything like that. So 11 components is pretty much half of what you'd get in a normal aluminium chassis for a motocross bike. That's super impressive, and their technology they've put into it to get that is again super impressive. We were lucky enough to go into where they developed the bike, and obviously couldn't film in there because a lot of it's confidential, and they explained their development of it, which was just mind-blowing. It's a typical Italian flair, the passion, what you'll get into this bike like anything else that the Italians build. As you all know, it's got the Desmo engine. I won't go too much into that because we're going to cover that in the video, but you know, with the Desmo engine, the Desmo valve system, so this thing revs to 11,600 RPM. Pretty revvy for a 450, and it's all usable rev. I think it's making 63 horsepower, so absolutely stunning. For me, to riding it today as a vet rider, I did find it fast. When we were like our first session in the morning, we could basically just have it in one map, no technology. I found it's sort of difficult to ride. What I found with it as well, because it's running, the headstock angle is a 27-degree angle with a 20mm offset, which is a bit unusual because most bikes are about 22. So it did feel a bit steep on the front, but I don't know, once, like riding it in the morning, like I say, I struggled a little bit. I found the back brake to be quite sharp. Didn't have much feel. I don't know if it was just this bike or because it's new, because it runs the Brembo system. It's got Brembo brakes front and back, clutches Brembo. So it's stuff that you're used to because they're on other bikes, but it just seemed to be grabby for me, and I did stall it a few times. Going back to like the characteristics of the bike, the ergonomics and everything like that, absolutely superb. They've got it, they've nailed it absolutely bang on. In the afternoon, we had an afternoon session. We were allowed to play with the electronics a bit. They brought out an all-new traction control. Again, that will be covered in the video. So with the traction, it is slightly different to any other traction you'd get because you've got different settings of traction. So I had it in traction 2, still in map 1, and it just absolutely transformed the bike. You put that traction on, it takes away a bit of the engine braking. There's a lot of engine braking in this, which I struggled with. It takes that away. Some of the other guys, the testers here, were having no engine braking at all, and we all found it better to ride like that. Once we had to play about with the electronics, it was just absolutely, and I'm going to use my favourite word as phenomenal, because it turned like a 250F, and it was all usable power. Once that traction was on, the power was just so usable. Out the tight turns, I just, again, you all know, I just ride these big bikes in third gear and just lug them and slug them and do whatever I can. It's a circuit with lots of elevations up and down and stuff like that, but there wasn't any part of the track where it struggled to pull that third gear. But like I say, with that traction on it, just absolutely transformed it. So, you know, from your young 20-year-old, you know, who's super strong, pro rider, semi-pro, they love the power, they will love this bike, right up to your vet rider like me, where we don't like so much power. We like it to be a bit more softer in the power, but usable. Fantastic. I mean, they've absolutely nailed it. Hats off to Ducati. It runs the Showa sprung oil forks, which were just fantastic. All I'd done all day was set the sag, didn't touch any of the clickers because the bike just felt absolutely perfect. So would I buy one of these bikes? The price in the UK is around about £11,000, just over. Would I buy one? It's a tough question. As we all know, motocross is quite expensive, but I think if you were running one bike, yeah, I probably would buy one, because you're just getting everything that you desire in a motocross bike. Ducati, they have that fantastic Italian flair, that technology, the passion that's gone into this bike was just outstanding. And like I say, to bring it to market within 3 years of development from a bit of paper with 2 people that started off developing this bike to now I think they've got 15, it's just unreal. So thank you very much Ducati UK for sending me out here. Absolutely brilliant. So you may see me on one of these very soon.
So Sean's ridden the bike and you've heard his thoughts, and today I've seen the pedigree that Ducati are bringing to our sport, and I for one am very excited to see what they can do.